B is for Baba. T is for Thomas the Tank Engine and friends. P is for Play School. F is for Fireman Sam.
When he hears the fire bell chime, Fireman Sam is there on time.
S is for Spot.
Spot, Spot, a lovable Spot.
And ABC is for the best in children's video. They're all available for you to collect now.
Postman Pat, Postman Pat, Postman Pat, and his black and white cat. Early in the morning, just as day is dawning, he picks up all the post bags in his van. Postman Pat, Postman Pat, Postman Pat, and his black and white cat. All the birds are singing, and the day is just beginning. Pat feels he's a really happy man. Everybody knows his bright red van. All his friends will smile as he waves to greet them. Maybe you can never be sure there'll be knock, ring, letters through your door. Postman Pat, Postman Pat, Postman Pat, and his black and white cat. All the birds are singing, and the day is just beginning. Pat feels he's a really happy man. Pat feels he's a really happy man. Pat feels he's a really happy man.
Boom, 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 boom. What a lovely day, said Pat to Jess as they drove along the valley on a fine sunny morning. They came into the village and stopped at the post office as they did every day to collect the letters. Good morning, Pat called. Morning, Pat, said Mrs. Goggins. Looks like a busy day for you. Lots of letters and parcels. Well, at least it's a nice day for it. That's odd, said Mrs. Goggins. Most of the post seems to be for Katie and Tom Pottage. Ah, but of course it's their birthday. Oh, so it is, said Pat. Won't they be excited when they see all these parcels? They are lucky. I remember when I was their age, waiting for the post. Hey, I'd better be on my way. They'll be looking out for me. Well, I'll be off. Goodbye. Boom, 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 boom. Pat was on his way. Before going to the Pottages, he had to call at the village school. Some of the children had arrived early and were playing in the schoolyard. Bill Thompson came running up to take care of the letters till the headmaster came. He always did that because he was the oldest. Oh dear, right in a puddle. Sarah and Lucy Selby asked Pat if he was good at hopscotch because they'd just had new lines painted in the yard. Well, it's a long time since I played, said Pat, but I'll have a go. Let's see now. He was quite good at it. Whoops! Pat was enjoying the hopscotch so much he almost forgot the time. Hey, I'll have to be going. We can't have the post being late, can we? Especially today. Bye-bye, Pat. Goodbye. Pat turned in at Greendale Farm. Katie and Tom saw him coming and ran to meet him. They were so excited they couldn't wait to see what Pat had brought them. They're twins, you see, so it was a double birthday. Pat wished them a happy birthday, then took a letter to their mother. Tom's present was just what he wanted. But Katie didn't seem very pleased with hers. "What's up with Katie?" asked Pat. She's wrong side out today," said Mrs. Pottage. "She's lost Sarah Ann." "Sarah Ann? Is that the little doll she takes to school?" "She takes it everywhere. She's lost without it. I don't know what we'll do if it doesn't turn up." "Oh, it's sure to turn up somewhere." "Trouble is, it could be anywhere. We went to see Aunt Alice yesterday and called at lots of places. She could have left it anywhere." "Don't worry, I'll look for Sarah Ann," said Pat. "I might come across her. I'm good at finding things, you know." "We'll get her smiling again, you'll see. Cheerio." Come on, Jess. We've work to do. The next stop was the church. The Reverend Timms heard Pat's van coming. There was a card from Cousin Joan on holiday in Mallorca. Pat told him about Katie's lost doll. "Oh, she could have lost it in the church," said Reverend Timms. "She always brings it. Ah, well, seek and thou shalt find. Let's have a look. Mind your head." "Found anything?" called Pat. "Oh, yes, a bump on the head." At last the Reverend Timms did find something, but it wasn't Sarah Ann. It was a lady's glove. It had the letters D.T. sewn inside. "D.T.," said Pat. "Dorothy Thompson, that's whose it is, I'm sure. I'll take it along for her. She will be pleased." "Well, I hope Katie's doll turns up somewhere," said the Reverend Timms. "We'll just keep on looking till it does," said Pat. "Thanks for helping. Cheerio." When Pat and Jess arrived at Thompson Ground, Mrs. Thompson was out with a basket, collecting the eggs. She was surprised when Pat gave her a glove with her letters. "Well, I never," she said. "Where did you find this? I've been looking everywhere for it." Then Pat told her about Katie's doll. "I was looking in the church for it. The Reverend Timms found your glove instead." "Now, let me see. Katie and her mother came to tea yesterday. She could have left her doll under a cushion. We'd better have a look. They searched everywhere. Mrs. Thompson found something, but it wasn't a doll. It was a penknife. Hey, that looks like Ted Glenn's knife. Goodness knows when he left it here, said Mrs. Thompson. Would you take it along for him? He will be pleased to have it back. Yes, I'll take it. I do hope you find Katie's doll. We'll keep looking. See you tomorrow. Cheerio. Bye-bye, Pat. What a day, said Pat to Jess. We found a glove and a penknife, but no Sarah Ann. I wonder if there's any chance of finding her at Ted Glenn's. Ted Glenn was delighted to see his knife. He couldn't guess where Pat had found it. When Pat told him about Katie's lost doll, Ted said, "Hey, she was here yesterday with her mother. They brought a lamp to repair." So they went to look in Ted's workshop. They didn't find the doll, but Ted found a watch that he'd forgotten he had. Enjoying yourself, Pat? That's Miss Hubbard's, he said. She brought it to be mended ages ago. She must have forgotten all about it. Would you take it for a Pat? Certainly. I'm going that way. I hope you find the lassie's doll, said Ted. So do I, said Pat. I seem to be able to find everything else. Bye, Ted. So long, then. Miss Hubbard was shopping at Sam's mobile shop, whilst Sam was enjoying a cup of tea. Miss Hubbard was surprised to see Pat, and even more surprised to see her watch. Pat told them all about Katie's lost doll, but they hadn't seen it. Poor Katie, said Pat, and on her birthday too. I know. I'll take her a box of chocolates. That'll cheer her up. Aha! Sarah Ann. So that's where you've been hiding all this time. It's Katie's doll, said Pat. I found her when I wasn't looking for her, sitting behind the chocolates. Sam was amazed. That child gets everywhere. I'll take the chocolates anyway, said Pat. They'll make a nice birthday present. Cheerio! Here she is, Jess. Keep an eye on her. When Pat arrived at the twins' party with Sarah Ann and the chocolates, Katie gave a big smile, the first that day. Jess joined in the party. And Pat had a piece of cake. Delicious, said Pat, but it's time we were off. Bye-bye, Pat. Bye. Goodbye, everyone. Have a good time.
Postman Pat, Postman Pat, Postman Pat and his black and white cat.
Bum 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 bum, dum dum diddly dum bum bum, bum 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 bum.
Postman Pat, Postman Pat, Postman Pat and his black and white cat. Early in the morning, just as day is dawning, he picks up all the post bags in his van. Postman Pat, Postman Pat, Postman Pat and his black and white cat. All the birds are singing and the day is just beginning. Pat feels he's a really happy man. Everybody knows his bright red van. All his friends will smile as he waves to greet them. Maybe you can never be sure. There'll be knock, ring, letters through your door. Postman Pat, Postman Pat, Postman Pat and his black and white cat. All the birds are singing and the day is just beginning. Pat feels he's a really happy man. Pat feels he's a really happy man. Pat feels he's a really happy man.
One sunny morning, Pat was hurrying along the road with a van full of letters and parcels for the people of Greendale. Suddenly, he had to stop. It was Alf Thompson driving his sheep across the road. Don't worry, Jess. They won't eat you. The sheep went into a field, and Pat was on his way again. His next stop was at the village school. Where is everybody? The children were bringing things to school for a display. Charlie Pringle had a bunch of flowers. Lucy Selby had brought a basket of eggs. My, your hens have been busy. And Tom Pottage had some day-old chicks. Hey, mind how you go. Whilst looking at all these things, Pat had forgotten his letters. But Bill Thompson came along with a cup of tea. Thank you, said Pat. And Bill took the letters. Sarah Gilbertson came for his cup. Have you done? She said. Nearly. Thanks, Sarah. That was grand. Goodbye.
Postman Pat and his black and white cat. Early in the morning, just as day is dawning, he picks up all the post bags in his van. Postman Pat, Postman Pat, Postman Pat and his black and white cat. All the birds are singing and the day is just beginning. Pat feels he's a really happy man. Everybody knows his bright red van. All his friends will smile as he waves to greet them. Maybe you can never be sure. There'll be knock, ring, letters through your door. Postman Pat, Postman Pat, Postman Pat and his black and white cat. All the birds are singing and the day is just beginning. Pat feels he's a really happy man. Pat feels he's a really happy man. Pat feels he's a really happy man.
Pat was getting on well with his round. He locked his van, and as it was a nice day for a picnic, he took his sandwiches to a field on the hill above Thompson Ground. It's been an easy day today. It was so warm that Pat soon fell asleep. Oh dear. But Mrs. Thompson's hens were wide awake, and Pat had left his sandwich box open, with his keys neatly beside it. The noise woke Pat just in time to chase after his sandwiches. And then he turned round in time to see a cheeky hen stealing his keys. Oh, whoops! I must get my keys back. I can't open the van or deliver my letters without them. Oh, so that's where you've got to. Oh dear, it's a long time since I climbed a tree, but here goes. Oops. Pat was just reaching out when the hen dropped the keys and flew off. Now the keys were stuck in the tree, and as Pat was climbing towards them, the branch gave way and... Whoa! Oh! Right in the middle of a prickly bush. Ouch! Mrs. Thompson had heard the commotion and came to see what was going on. Pat told her about the thieving hen. "Dearie me," said Mrs. Thompson, "the little devil. She must think she's a magpie or some such. We'd better get a ladder and see if we can reach your keys." "There'll be no more post today unless we can," said Pat. "That won't do," said Mrs. Thompson, "especially when I'm expecting a letter from Auntie Jean to say whether she's coming for Easter or not." So they went for the ladder. I'll take it now. They're here, all right. Look, I've got them. There's something else up here. Lots of things. It's like a magpie's nest. My. He brought everything down to show Mrs. Thompson. There were all kinds of shiny things. There's my wedding ring that went missing last Easter. I thought I'd lost it down the sink. That's all right. I'll get it down. Mind your head. As my hens have stolen your sandwiches, you'd better come and have some dinner with me. There's plenty to spare. That's very nice of you. Pat was glad he'd lost his sandwiches when he saw what a good dinner Mrs. Thompson had cooked. Mrs. Thompson was glad too. She'd got her ring back. But it was soon time to be off. Thanks for the meal. It was lovely. Come on, Jess. Jess. Come on. Just fancy, said Pat. A magpie hen. Who ever heard of such a thing? Pat stopped to tell Sam Waldron about the magpie hen. You'd better keep away from my van, he said. I wonder if that's where my tie pin went. Sounds odd. Oh, just needs a clean. When Pat saw Miss Hubbard, he told her about the magpie hen. Well, I lost a silver earring last month, she said. And a hat pin. I wonder if they're up a tree somewhere. I must go and see Mrs. Thompson. On the way home, Pat met Alf Thompson on his tractor and stopped to tell him about the magpie hen. Alf couldn't think of anything he'd lost, but he thought it was a good story. Pat had a letter for him. Ooh, one for me. I'll not lose this anyway. Cheerio. Bye. Pat saw some real magpies on the way home and wondered if they had taught Mrs. Thompson's hens to steal. As for Jess, he was asleep.
Postman, Pat, Postman Pat, Postman Pat, and his black and white cat. Postman Pat, Postman Pat, Postman Pat, and his black and white cat. Early in the morning, just as day is dawning, he picks up all the post bags in his van. Postman Pat, Postman Pat, Postman Pat, and his black and white cat. All the birds are singing, and the day is just beginning. Pat feels he's a really happy man. Everybody knows his bright red van. All his friends will smile as he waves to greet them. Maybe you can never be sure there'll be knock, ring, letters through your door. Postman Pat, Postman Pat, Postman Pat, and his black and white cat. All the birds are singing, and the day is just beginning. Pat feels he's a really happy man. Pat feels he's a really happy man. Pat feels he's a really happy man. It was a special day for Pat, but he was keeping it a secret.
Now then, Jess, don't you give my secret away. Mrs. Goggins was looking out for Pat. She was very pleased about something. "Hello, Pat," she said. "There's a lot of post today." Pat didn't look too happy until he saw that most of it was for him. But who could be writing to Pat? One envelope had a drawing of a cat on it, and the writing looked very much like Katie Pottage's. "Why don't you open them? Then you'll know who sent them." So Pat did. What a surprise. They were all birthday cards. He stood them in a row along the counter. There was one from every person on his round. That was nice. But how did everyone know it was his birthday today? He'd kept it a secret all these years, and now they all knew. Funny. How on earth they found out, I couldn't say. But let me wish you a happy birthday too, and many happy returns. Pat bought 6 chocolate kittens. Then gathered up all his cards and letters and went on his way. At Greendale Farm, the twins were looking out for Pat. "Happy birthday, Pat," they said as he came in with the post. Thank you." Mrs. Pottage had just come in from the kitchen. "Happy birthday," she said. Pat showed the twins his cards. "We've made you a cake." "How did you know it was my birthday?" said Pat. "We're not telling," said Mrs. Pottage.
It's a secret.
It was a secret, said Pat with a laugh.
Here's a sugar mouse for Jess,
said Tom. Thank you very much. Now, let me see. Have I got everything? Cake, mouse, cards. Goodbye. Jess spotted the mouse. He thought he'd catch it before it got lost. No, said Pat. Save it for tea time. It won't run away. But Jess wasn't so sure. Hello, Reverend. A letter for you. Oh, thank you. Been expecting this. And here's something for you to greet you on your birthday. Thank you, said Pat. It was a leather-bound Bible. Oh, thank you. But how did you know? He who reads shall learn. Very kind of you. Goodbye. Godspeed. There were some letters for Thompson Ground. Come in. Pat arrived just in time for a cup of tea. Thank you. Oh, your letter. Alf Thompson came in. Hello, Pat, he said. Happy birthday. He gave him a walking stick with a handle made from a sheep's horn. He'd made it himself. That'll be good for keeping dogs off. Thanks, said Pat. But how did you know it was my birthday? Oh, you'll have to find that out for yourself. Just keep your eyes open, said Alf, smiling. You're quite a famous postman, you know. Whatever does he mean? Thought Pat. He was getting more and more puzzled, and his van was filling up with presents. Jess didn't like the stick. He thought the horn might butt him when he wasn't looking. Granny Dryden was busy cooking when Pat arrived with the letters. He'd brought her groceries, too, as the mobile shop couldn't get up the lane to her cottage. Morning! Post! Granny Dryden had knitted something for Pat's birthday. Whatever was it? A woolly vest. It'll keep you warm in the winter, said Granny Dryden. It looked very itchy. But Pat said, thank you, it's just the right size. How did you know it was my birthday? Eh? I can't hear a word you say, said Granny Dryden. I need a new battery in my hearing aid. I'll bring you one tomorrow, said Pat. Goodbye. At Miss Hubbard's cottage, there was a glass of fruit juice waiting for Pat. There were 2 letters for her. Miss Hubbard drank his health and wished him a happy birthday. Cheers. She gave him a steering wheel cover made of red velvet. Thank you. That's lovely. She didn't tell him how she knew it was his birthday. Goodbye. At Intake Farm, George Lancaster showed Pat his special prize hens. They look champion, said Pat. They're champion layers, said George. Just look at that. He gave him 2 dozen for his birthday and a dozen for the village school. Thanks for the eggs, George. Then Sam Waldron arrived and gave Pat a punnet of strawberries and a carton of double cream for his birthday tea. Thank you, Sam. Lucy was on the lookout for Pat at the village school. The children had made a picture of him on a big sheet of card with Happy Birthday written underneath and all their names. They'd also made a model of his van, but they wouldn't tell him how they knew it was his birthday. Pat had presents for them, a chocolate kitten each and the eggs from George Lancaster. Goodbye. The day's round was nearly finished. Pat was just looking to see if there were any letters to collect when Peter Fogg came along on his tractor. He stopped to wish Pat a happy birthday. Pat told him how everyone seemed to know about it. Don't you know why? Said Peter Fogg, laughing. I wish I did, said Pat. Peter showed him a newspaper. It was this week's Pencaster Gazette. Have a look at this, he said. Pat was amazed. There was an article about him, headed Postman of the Year. It told all about his work, how he helped everyone, where he was born, and the date of his birthday. Well, said Pat, how did they find all that out? Keep it as a souvenir, said Peter. Thanks, said Pat. I'll show it to the wife. She will be pleased. All right, Jess, I'm coming. I know it's been a long day, but we're off home now. It's a pity no one knows when it's your birthday, Jess. Never mind. We'll have a little party tonight.
Postman Pat, Postman Pat and his black and white cat.
Bum, 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 dee-dum, dum, dee-dum, bum, bum, brum, bum,